everyone, this is Nikki from the Shivering Mouse back for my day 2 of my Trim Healthy Mama journal. So to be clear, we are going to be talking about this book right here, only not in mirror image. So today I'm going to talk about kind of the intros, chapter 1, and then the potty, which is their way of saying podcast. I guess I should explain that, or it's going to sound really gross when I talk about the potty every day. The potty, as far as the first and second episode, I couldn't get the first one downloaded for some reason. I tried like 36 times. My phone was just not cooperating. So we're going to be discussing number 2, which is fine because it was still kind of an intro, so I'm pretty excited about it. Today's check-in, I went from 257 pounds when I started Trim Healthy Mama, and started like actually really following it back in, I want to say it's March, so I want to say probably the beginning of February. Went from 257 pounds down to 246.6, so we are continuing to work downward, which is what I wanted. Again, I know a lot of you have weight loss methods that work a lot more quickly. I know I have had as well, but this is much more gentle on your hormones, much more gentle on your skin. You're not going to have like your hair all fall out or stuff like that. And you say you're looking at me like I was crazy, but I have had diets that I've done before, like elimination diets where they put you on those weird like soy shakes. I'm gesticulating my pen at you. And one of the side effects of the diet, you lose a lot of weight, but you could have some muscle loss, loss of bone density, your hair will probably fall out, and I'm like, good gracious, that sounds horrible. How could that possibly be good for you? And you have to argue, carrying the extra weight is equally bad for you than, losing the weight too quickly. But the whole appeal of the Trim Healthy Mama diet, there are 2 main appeals, I guess, to me, is 1, sustainability, and 2, it's much more gentle on your body. You're not stressing your adrenals by taking out all carbs completely. You're not, going so low into the calorie category that you're losing your hair and your skin gets all dry and nasty. It's just a good balance, and it really is meant to be a pretty balanced approach. I keep leaning to the left here. It's meant to be a pretty balanced approach so that you do get nutritionally what you need, and sometimes all you need to lose weight is to heal your body. If you're someone like me that's tried so many different diets and you've just kind of injured your stomach lining and stuff like that, you could be at a calorie deficit and still not lose weight just because your body is broken, and so you need a break. And so part of why Trim Healthy Mama appeals to me is for that reason. I have tried it before. I've had success with it. That was a long time ago, obviously, but, part of me stopped it because the girls, my husband calls them the girls, and he thinks the sisters are so funny, but part of why I stopped it is they're my mom's age. My mom introduced me to the diet. I kind of thought of it as my mom's diet. But looking back, it's the only thing besides extreme low carb that's ever worked for me for losing weight. Even with a complete elimination diet that led to vegetarianism, I still only lost about 20 pounds and then hit my stone plateau where I absolutely cannot lose anything more. And so, like I said, Trim Healthy Mama and ultra low carb are the only things that have worked for me. Trim Healthy Mama is much more sustainable long term, and I know all diets say that they're meant to be a lifestyle and not a diet, but this one actually gives you the flexibility for that to be possible, which is nice. It's nice for something to be gentle on your body in a world where everything seems to be so harsh, and so having that flexibility really helps. As far as the introductions to Serene and Pearl's first book, this is the first one, the King Kahuna, right? The great big one. Even they make fun of how big this book is. It doesn't fit in the frame with me. Just like my little fingers. Okay, anyway, I'm done making fun of myself. The forewords to this book are written by their husbands, which is really funny if you're a married woman or somebody who's thinking about being married. Most diets are not within what most men want to eat, especially like I'm Midwestern, so we're meat and potatoes people out here. We don't want to go light and just eat salad with avocado on top for the rest of our lives. And our men wanted even less. So, it's hard. You're like, how am I going to convince my kids, my husband, my family to be on board with this? And so to have it right from the start address the perspectives of the husbands was kind of funny to me, kind of unique. And they're funny. They're not as sassy as Serene and Pearl are to each other, but they're pretty funny guys. They're both pretty stubborn. Sam is always on board with Serene's insanity, but let's just say the girls' husbands have seen a lot of diets come and go, and so they maintain a healthy amount of skepticism. It seems like Charlie is a little more on board than Sam. They like to pick on the girls about it and stuff like that, but even when they do a crossover or, eat the Trim Healthy Mama meal and then have ice cream afterwards, they're still very supportive of the girls. They help run the business. They help create the products, that kind of thing. And so while they may not know the mechanical ins and outs of the diet, they were the test kitchen, if you will. Like the girls have a heckin' ton of kids, and they have these husbands, and so they have to test these recipes out on them, because no mother or even married woman like myself is going to bother cooking a whole separate meal for her husband and for herself. You're not going to do it. It's awful. It's enough work to make one and do the dishes from one. You don't want to make bajillions. And so it just kind of emphasizes how involved the husbands have been in the testing process and a different perspective on the diet. Now, Chapter 1 has its own title. I called it A Place Called Done, and that's kind of the name of the first section of the chapter, but it really was the part of it that resonated with me the most, because as I said, I've tried any number of diets. I wrote out a list here. Where did it go? Here we go. I've tried keto, Atkins, South Beach, Weight Watchers, elimination, vegetarian, and gluten-free, and like I said, the only things that have even worked for me are Trim Healthy Mama and ultra low carb, and ultra low carb is not sustainable long term. But you get so much different information from so many different sources, and it gets so confusing. Some people want you to cut out all grains, some people want you to cut out all dairy, others swear that you have to stop eating meat. And so, by getting all of this different strange information from different sources, it's very confusing. The girls went back and got information not only from science but from the Bible, tried to combine everything, because they had lived the consequences to trying these different diets much more long term than I ever did, and the consequences sometimes included poor health for their children, having their children's teeth grow in wrong and things like that, but just from being a raw diet for too long, too much sugar, too many grains, not enough protein, that kind of thing. And they break down the science of all of that, which as a former science major, that meant a lot to me too, because I don't like to just jump into a diet and assume, yeah, that sounds good, and just get started. I like for there to be some research. They cite their sources, which is fantastic. They did their research. They give you the science and not just the emotion, which makes it a lot more believable for me. But as far as A Place Called Done, they're just talking about being completely burned out on all of the different diets and how each diet has a certain amount of science behind it that actually fits. The problem is anytime you're eliminating a whole food group, it's not only not sustainable for your whole life, but you're missing a whole set of nutrients that comes with that food group, and inevitably it's going to lead to fatigue and muscle wasting and just all kinds of negative side effects for you. Your immunity may drop. It really depends on which food group of the day you're illuminating. You're lighting up. No, eliminating from your diet. And so it really does help. They talk about the effects of nutrients and nutrition on how you age. It may help you keep from aging as quickly as you would otherwise eating more processed foods. So this diet is absolutely not meant to be a denial of foods in any way. Some of their meals that they put in here almost feel like you're cheating. Like some of them feel very indulgent, and they're really not. As long as you don't put your carbs and your fats together, you can actually get pretty creative and feel like you're really giving yourself quite a treat when it could be something very simple that you're engaging in that is actually helping you lose weight, even as you feel that you're not cheating. So it's nice. It's very nice. The diet includes your fruits, your veggies, your whole grains, your meats. Oh, heavens, yes, your meats, your oils, everything. And it's just ways to combine them without putting the carbs together with the fats. And it's really neat. I got started before they had all of their own, like, baking blend and Gentle Sweet and all of that kind of stuff. And so I still don't purchase those things. I just find I can't afford to. And so I'll go get, like, stevia from Meijer's or Walmart and stuff like that and kind of do my own thing. But they do have those available if you're not somebody who's ambitious enough to mix your coconut flour and your almond flour and your peanut flour and stuff like that and get everything all mixed together. If you'd rather have it come in a kit, they have that for you. Check out their website. Check out their YouTube channel. I linked it in my last video. It's pretty fun. So the first person they introduce you to is Whole Grain Jane. She's kind of your typical low-fat, high carbohydrate, high fiber diet. This is not the standard American diet. It's better than your standard American diet of takeout and pizzas and stuff like that. But it is what most Americans typically think of when they think of dieting. This is kind of the first thing most people think of. Instead of using regular white table sugar, she uses honey or maple syrup. And, you know, at the end of the day, that's still sugar. So it's still zipping that blood sugar right up. And so Serene and Pearl talk about Whole Grain Jane and how she home makes all her own food and her own granola and baked goods. And, grinds her own wheat, and she's extremely meticulous. She's working very hard, trying to do everything that the experts say to do to be healthy, and for some reason, when she goes to the doctor, despite having all of these heart-healthy whole grains, her cholesterol is sky high. Well, the fact of the matter is, the culprit for her was insulin, which always makes you gain weight. Insulin comes from our body trying to process sugar. And so, Whole Grain Jane is shocked to realize her problem is sugar. But, because she's not giving straight sugar, gotta fit in the camera, sugar, to her family, but she's using more natural forms of sugar that are still sugar. Even potatoes will raise your blood sugar. And so, I kind of like that they took this picture of Whole Grain Jane for their first profile for Chapter 1, just because, it is kind of what you think of when you think of a diet. You think of somebody sitting there chomping on rice cakes and whole grain pasta and saying no to anything with flavor, to go with it. And I think Whole Grain Jane also kind of represents the dark side of vegetarianism, where most sweets and baked goods are, even if they're not vegan, they're usually pretty vegetarian, especially if you're an ovo-lacto vegan. And so they allow you to have, you can have lots of potato chips. You can have lots of French fries when you're a vegetarian. And so this kind of Whole Grain Jane kind of touches on not only that whole grain aspect, but also on the kind of darker depths you can trip into when you're a vegetarian, but you still have cravings, because she strongly discourages, it makes a note of her family, to eat meat too. She tries to put a stop to that. And to be clear, these are not actual people. They're fictional characters created as metaphors for Americans on a diet and kind of the way that Americans try to diet and approach it. And I love that they open with this. They actually open the next book with something very similar too, so I have a great time with it, because I see myself in the past in several of these characters that they introduce. Tomorrow we'll go over a totally different one, and so that'll be fun. The point of Whole Grain Jane is she's eating lots and lots of grains, and she is cutting fat anywhere and everywhere she can. As we mentioned, Trim Healthy Mama is all about balance, and so we're going to see how you do need some fats, and you don't need quite so many carbs. You do need carbs, but not quite so many. So it's fun to kind of go over that, and to, again, go over the science of the hormones and the endocrine system and why this doesn't work, or why it works short term, but after a while it gets to be a problem. Today's episode of the potty that I went over for this was episode 2. As I mentioned, episode 1 didn't download. They call it the potty because apparently that's what you call podcasts in New Zealand, and that's where they're from. They're kind of from New Zealand and kind of from Australia. I don't know. They've moved, I guess, at different points in their life. Definitely listen to this if you can't get a hold of the YouTube channel. If you just go to their website, you should be able to pull up some episodes of the podcast, and it's absolutely fantastic. But they talk about where they came from, and it's funny that this just perfectly lined up with the beginning chapters of the book, because they're talking about how they were just exhausted. They thought they'd tried everything. They were running out of hope. Pearl was having some weight issues for Serene. She was just having some medical complications from being a vegan for so long and then doing the raw food diet for so long. Like I said, some of her kids, when they were born and eventually had teeth come in, the teeth were not super healthy, that kind of thing. In a couple later episodes, she mentions that she had worms just from having such a high sugar, high fruit diet. I actually have nightmares about parasites. Parasites are my greatest fear. I'm not scared of heights. I'm not scared of speaking in front of people, all of those biggies, but parasites terrify me. And so, terrify, like nightmares kind of terrified. So to me, that turned me off from that kind of diet right straight away. Nope. Yeah, there's this movie with Daniel Radcliffe where he's in the jungle and he ends up like popping some kind of caterpillar out of his head. I left the room. My husband loves Daniel Radcliffe. I was like, nope, I'm leaving. That was it for me for that movie. No. And so, yeah, so to me, they kind of go over all of the different things they tried and just the relief that flooded them when they realized that the answers were in a book that was much older than any book they had been to so far. The answers were in the Bible, where it specifically mentions every food group and that God has given these things to us for our nourishment. And while I am a Christian, I don't claim to be any expert. I don't have any degrees in apologetics or anything like that, but it does seem funny to me that it would clarify specifically that you can have all of these things if all of those things then later we would find that we couldn't. And so I do like, though, that Serene and Pearl's book does justify things from a scientific perspective as well, because a lot of people aren't religious at all, and so to them, the scriptures would mean nothing, and so those people want the scientific evidence, and as I mentioned, I have a scientific background, so I definitely want that as well. So this book kind of feeds both parts of my soul as well as my body, and it helps me just to keep things together a little better. Like I said, I lose weight much more slowly, but I heal things along the way, whether it's inflammation in my feet from abuse of walking on hard concrete floors for so many years, or whether it's just having healthier hair. I just slowly see every day when I wake up, I feel better. And so my husband, I think this is the happiest he's ever been when I'm on a diet, because he wakes up and goes, "Are you going to listen to your girls today? Are you going to read your book today?" And he's super encouraging about it, which is really funny, because with any other diet he comes home and goes, "So what did you eat today?" Whereas with this one, he sees the progress, so he doesn't have to interrogate me about the progress, and he just wants to make sure that I'm experiencing the changes. So I enjoy that. The episode of the podcast also talks about how, like I've mentioned before, eliminating a whole food group from your diet is just not sustainable forever. And if you want a diet to permanently change and heal your body, it can't be something that you say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks." And so the permanence of it, to me, is the plan. It has to be something you can live with, because as you go through different stages of your life, you're going to require different things to be healthy. And that this book really addresses that. It addresses hormones, it addresses mood, it addresses nutrition and allergies and intolerances and just all kinds of stuff. And it does, if you are a Christian, it does address spiritual things, but it also addresses scientific things if you're not into that kind of thing. And so I love this, and I can't wait for day 3. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I'll see you tomorrow.